Welcome to the Spiritual Principles Made Practical podcast. I'm your host, Scott Friedman. And today we're going to dig into, how do I build a stronger ability to accept and relate to being one with all things, right? So if I'm one with all things, then I am everything, right? I'm the other people. And I understand, I've made some headway in understanding that, I can only see in other people what I have in myself, but that's not exactly the same as accepting being one with all there is. It's still thinking of people as being outside of myself. And when I'm one, there is nobody outside of myself. It's like there's just the one, right? And it's like, okay, well, how do I relate to that? And right now, again, it's always the same in the respect that to move forward, I need a greater acceptance of what's true right now. So what's true right now is that I have this sort of mental vision of the all, the and that and then below that there's the will, and then the will creates the mind, and then the mind creates differentiation. So there's no differentiation in being one. And so that makes it hard to talk about because we use words to differentiate things, and it's like, well, how do you how do you use language to describe something that's larger than language? I don't know. But anyway, we're gonna try and find out. But I do know that a couple things. One, that understanding that I have um, a mental picture, if you will, of what it is to be one, and the feeling and all of that sense of calm and well-being that goes with that. Um, I know that I relate to that, identify with that, I experience that, and I also use that. So yesterday was one of those days where, I just had this huge, it was just this overwhelming sense of dread, and in my meditation, I got that, there was a 50% chance I was just going to give up. I mean, it was really very hard to explain, but also very powerful and very, very negative. But what happened is I had the thought that, well, you know what? Um, my thoughts, there is no suffering that isn't created by my mind, right? So my mind's creating all the suffering, and I have access to the all, which is far greater than the mind. And it's really when I'm aware of the all, there's no experience of the mind. There's no thinking. There's just being. And so I went into the all. And so what happened is that I used the all as a refuge, right? Or a way to stop feeling this tremendous dread. And when I look at it now, um, you know, from the standpoint of the all, I can see that dread, that suffering, that sort of just global despair, if you will. What that was it what was it was the suffering of forgetting, right? It's the suffering of forgetting my wholeness that occurs when I engage with the thought world. And I call it the thought world because that world doesn't exist without the mind, right? So my mind creates that world, and my mind can only create that world when I'm engaged with my mind, and I'm only engaged with my mind when I will my awareness to be limited to what my mind creates. And so in choosing forgetfulness, there's really just this tremendous suffering that's created in the effort to have contrast. And so then the question really becomes, you know, do I want do I want wholeness, or do I want contrast? And is there a way that I can have both? And I guess my thought is that um, uh, it's whatever my consciousness focuses on. So, like right now, I'm focused on the all. And whatever words are coming, and that's all fine. And so it's like, okay, well, then am I bringing an understanding of the all into the mind world? And if I am, that's kind of, to what extent does that give me, both the well-being of the all and the differentiation that uh, to experience my divine qualities as well as all of the, because I'm not just creating joy, I'm also creating suffering at the same time, right? So it's like it's the how am I gonna how am I gonna articulate this? It's like um, I'm creating the suffering so that I can have contrast, but I can be aware that I'm creating the divine qualities and the denial of the existence of those qualities. Um, as a match set to differentiate and appreciate those qualities more, and I can play that game whenever I want. And so that's true, but it's kind of a match set because I mean, joy doesn't isn't recognizable without sorrow, right? And so, it's because there's no contrast, right? If there was no contrast, joy would just be, it's like I live in a place with phenomenal weather, and I have to kind of remind myself to appreciate the weather and remember, when I was at other places where the weather was not good like this, but I live in Southern California where the weather is like about as good as it gets, it's fabulous, and it's like, okay, but I don't think about it a lot because it's the weather's so great so much of the time. Now there are occasions when, it's too windy to play tennis or it's cold or it's pouring rain, which, I like the rain, so I guess that's all right. But um, I'm sort of investigating, is there a way to have my cake and eat it too, essentially? Can I have all of the joy that exists uh, and be conscious and appreciative of that joy without having the contrast of suffering? And I think my answer to that is no. But what I can do is that when I experience the suffering like I did yesterday, I can choose to withdraw to being one. And in that and in being one, there is no suffering, right? And there is no mind, right? Because there's no suffering with that. The mind creates the suffering, right? And so when there's no engagement with the mind, there's no suffering. And there's only joy and stuff. But like when I'm recording this podcast and I'm thinking about it, it's like, okay, well, to some extent, I mean, even to have words come out, right? To some extent, I have to be engaged in the mind world. And but in that mind world is like, okay, you know what? um, I can use my mind to remember when I was suffering, and then that allows me to experience greater joy talking to you now. So, so there is kind of a way to, I'll say, jury rig the mind world in a way that allows me to experience a great deal of joy, and when they're suffering, that I can choose to opt out of the whole game and to go back into being one, being all, and I can do that, and that's in many respects only possible because to some extent I'm still engaging in the world of time, right? Because in when there's no time, then it's just the infinite now. But in the infinite now, I can create the idea of time, and so uh, If it's confusing to you, don't worry. It's confusing to me too. I'm just trying to figure out how to have my cake and eat it too, right? I want to appreciate it and have all the joy that exists. And I don't want any of the suffering. That's a contrast that makes me aware that the joy is joy and not just like how it is all the time, even though that is how it is all the time. So, so far, the best that I've come up with so far is to have in my mind world the fact that I can choose to focus on the all, and that gets me out of the suffering. So what'll happen is right, typically man, I have this great inspiration and all this excitement and enthusiasm, and I'll be bursting at the seams. And man, everything is just in the flow, and it's all going great. And then it's like, oh God, this is horrible. I want to kill myself. I want to end this. How do I stop this? This is just misery beyond my belief. And know that that's going to come up. But when that comes up, and one of the things that is really cool now is that I'm getting better at is to say, okay, I'm creating suffering now, and uh, I can focus on the fact that I'm one with all things and that I am the all and and that suffering can't exist when I am the all. And so I'm just gonna go back and be focused on the present moment because the present moment is part of the all, right? So then I get out of that, despair, right? So maybe what I figured out is that, well, even if I have to have both in order to have contrast, right? But I still have the ability to pull myself out of the despair whenever, with my knowledge of my ability to be present and relate with the all. And then that's kind of cool. So even if it is a match set, I still have the ability to sort of revel in the joy and the inspiration and the happiness and all of that, as well as when I experience the suffering, be aware that I'm creating suffering and be aware that I have the ability to end that immediately by focusing on the present moment and in fact have becoming increasingly adept at doing that. So all of that, if you take all of that together, it's still all part of the all. So the question is like, okay, how do I relate more to being the all? And right now, I guess the best that I'm coming up with is that understanding that the consciousness of being one with all things is always with me, and that it's really and it's always there because I always am one with all things. And what happens is that I can choose mind engagement anytime I want. So if I want to be uh, mind conscious, I'll say, of being one with all things. I can do that by being in the eternal present moment, and I know how to do that. And I can do that by accepting that I am the all, and it works. I mean, it's practical, it's functional, right? Suffering goes away, but I can go back into the mind world and and share that in words with people and share the experience I'm having as I share those words and so it's really uh, in some ways it is kind of the best of both worlds because I'm realizing my power of that I can engage in the thought world when I want to. And I don't have to engage in the thought world when I don't want to. And when my thought world is creating suffering, I have the power to choose. No, I don't want to engage in suffering. I want to go back to the all. I want to go back to the present where suffering doesn't exist and there's infinite joy and peace. And I can choose that. Um, and then I can choose to go back and into joy and wonderful and all the divine qualities that always exist and stuff, and still feel like at least some level of contrast with them. Like right now, right? I was like, am I enjoying doing this podcast? Yeah, well, moments of it I am, right? It depends upon where I direct my attention with my will, right? So if I direct my attention with my will on my divine qualities, and I just say, oh well, I want to let the joy and the wisdom of the all just flow through me as best I can, and this is what I'm doing now, and who knows what's going to happen, but it's perfect and it's awesome. I could do that. And even though I know in doing that that I'm probably creating a circumstance where I'm going to focus and experience and create suffering. But I can limit that suffering, right? It's like that whole thing of like, if you're gonna have a pity party, you know what? Do it up good, but just do it for 5 minutes, right? Or 1 minute, right? And so it's like it's that kind of thing where I can choose to be open to the flow and letting the all flow through me and express spontaneously, like 98% of the time, and then 2% of the time I can have suffering so I can have contrast and appreciate the joy that I am. And so uh, that's kind of the best I can come up with spontaneously in this podcast right now. And you know what? Learn as we go. Learn as we go. So anyway, that's kind of, the it's accepting both. And I think it's one of the key thing that I want to say is that I can accept the wholeness of who I am in the space of mind creation anytime I want. And I can with that acceptance, I become able to choose if I want to go back to an awareness of being one with all things and peace and joy and happiness and infinite there, or stay in the contrast, or uh, one of the things that seems to happen is that when I retreat to being all, then it so much of that joy and that life and that vitality, I would say that the positive side of things just pours out and it's wonderful. So I'm still kind of learning as I grow on this whole thing, but I understand that um, there are ways that we can um, experience more of being one and have that sort of wisdom uh, become manifest in our thought world, our physical reality thought world. And one of those is focusing on and sharing win-win solutions. And so this is just this podcast is a win-win solution in the respect that because we're all one, right? If I'm healing myself, I'm healing you. And so by having a greater acceptance of what's true, I'm healing myself, and then that is automatically healing you because we're all one. So that's an example of a win-win solution, right? And making all of that more conscious in the world. And so, one of the things that I've been sort of intrigued with is I understand that when I heal myself, I heal the world. And so when I look out in the world and I see suffering, then I say, okay, well, how is this working then? How do I heal myself to alleviate the suffering that I see in the world? Because if healing myself heals the world, then that's, how do I, if I'm experiencing suffering in the world and I'm one with all that exists, then how does it work that when I heal myself, I heal that suffering? And right now, what I can understand is that the more I experience joy, the more I resonate joy in other people. And when there's joy in other people or in myself, or when there's joy, period, there's no suffering. So that's the best I can get to, and that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So, one of the things that I want to think about is the idea that, okay, well, am I experiencing enough joy that I'm resonating joy in other people? And then in that instant, right, where I'm experiencing enough joy and it's resonating joy in other people, then I have healed the world. Right? And so that's and that makes sense with all of the other inspiration I've gotten. So that's what I see that I um, can understand how healing myself heals the world. That was the title of my first book, is healing ourself, healing ourself heals the world. And so, uh, but but I'm gaining more understanding about that and um, so on. So I'm looking to, for ways that I can, in areas if I'm not feeling joy, if I'm feeling suffering because of contrast, that the thing I can choose to do is to go back into an acceptance of the all. And then once I've embodied that energy enough, then presumably I'll be able to go back into the world of the mind and express that joy that I have access to and I'm experiencing by being aware of the fact that I'm all, that I'm one with everything, that I'm in the eternal present. So little convoluted, but there's some gems in there. I offer thought coaching because it's a win-win deal, right? I can work with you and together we can find ways to become more accepting of the magnificence that we are all that exists and the power of that and our creative power and all of that and become more conscious and aware of that and put into practice the fact that any goal we have because the achieving that goal will result in us growing spiritually, which is to say, growing spiritually equals accepting that we are all the love and joy that exists and that we've chosen to experience it through contrast. And the more that we accept that, then the more wonderful everything in our life is. And so, if you want to participate in bringing more of that joy and resonance of that joy into the world and thereby healing the world, contact me at scottfriedman40@gmail.com. That's SCOTTFRIEDMAN40 at gmail.com. My website, where my books are, is www.thoughtcoachingbyscott.com. Links to the books on that website, and you can go there. And in general, if you have a win-win solution that you've done, something where you engaged in the physical world in a way that uplifted you and other people, and you'd like to share that, contact me at the email address I gave you, and we'll record a podcast, right? Because we want to, example is the most powerful form of leadership. So we want to share our example of creating win-win solutions that uplift everybody as far and wide as possible. And I invite you to contact me, put win-win solutions in the subject line, and we'll do that. So anyway, um, unlimited energy and joy is available. Is something we all have, and the more we're conscious of it, the more we're able to direct it, the more we create a joyful, happy, wonderful life. And that's a good thing, and it's something we can do. All right, be well.